I'm a business graduate. I'm also mentored by the former VP of Sales for Bell Canada, John Hertel. I owe you one. And from him, I learned what he liked to call the six-step sales approach. I'd like to share this with you, but not in the context of look at what I'm doing, where I'm doing it, and when I'm doing it, but rather look at how I'm doing it and why I'm doing it. And hopefully you can learn something that you can apply to your own thing, whether it's a passion project or business. Sales doesn't necessarily mean that there's money involved. So without further ado, the six-step sales approach is step one, preparation. Why France? I've been there before. I've got a number of allies in France. I like the fact that there's a 6-hour time zone difference. It allows me to basically live at night while working the day remotely in Toronto. And more importantly, when I look at the billboards periodically, I find that their top 40, top 100 in France has more singer-songwriters than the top 40 in the US or Canada or anywhere else really. And I think that a lot of it has to do with the fact that their architecture is so old. For every bar, there's 2 cafes. There's, 2 theaters. There's just a lot more cafes and theaters which are geared towards the softer music, the singer-songwriters, than what we're used to here in Toronto and the rest of North America, which is a lot of bars and clubs where it's about getting loud and getting rowdy. So, it's a better fit, simply put. Here's what's interesting. If you look closely at the discography of some of these famous singer-songwriters, like Rufus Wainwright, most of their charting is actually in Europe. I'm talking France, Denmark, Germany, Netherlands, Norway, right? He's ranking there more consistently than the US or Canada, and that's Rufus Wainwright. Elliott Smith, same kind of deal, like Belgium, France, Ireland, Norway, Sweden, UK, Australia. Damien Rice, Ireland, France, always ranking. Germany, always ranking. Norway, UK, US, he's ranking, but kind of low. Matt Simmons, Netherlands, Belgium, Switzerland, Germany, Austria. And this guy's charting in France right now. Ed Sheeran, kind of an odd case, but yeah, again, huge in Europe. It's very consistent. Ray LaMontagne, France, more often than not. Ireland, always charting. Ben Harper, same thing, France, ranking really well in France. In Italy, Portugal, Feist, she spent 2 years touring Europe and moved to Paris for a while. So that explains why Let It Die blew up in Austria, France, and Germany before anything ever happened for her in Canada or the US. And Justin Azuka, France, right, a little bit in the States. Hayden, one of my favorite Canadian singer-songwriters, unfortunately hasn't ranked anywhere, but I know that he's done some touring with Feist and would probably agree. Continental Europe is the place to be. Now, aside from knowing that France is the place I want to go, I need to find places to stay, people to play with, venues to play at. So let's start with Google. Let's search for live music venues in Paris. I get a review. Best live music venues in Paris. Looks like a list of places in Toronto, like the Bovine, Free Times, or the Horseshoe, and the Rivoli, and Lee's Palace, Clinton's Tavern. These are all bars that are equipped for a live band. So, on to Couchsurfing, where I'm going to look for people who can help, either by giving me a place to stay or pointing me in the right direction. I blast about 50 people from Mexico, France, the United States, and lo and behold, I find this guy named Etienne, who is a music journalist in Paris, France. I send him my list of venues that I found on Google, ask if he knows about them, if they're any good. He says yes, they're great. Here are a bunch of videos I shot for bands that performed at these venues. And here's a list of venues that I think would be more fitting for what you're doing. So, sure enough, I now have a hit list of venues, a place to stay, and step 2, approach. This is where I blasted all the venues I found on Google and the list that Etienne gave me, and sure enough, the only venue that replies is the one that he said would be the perfect fit, but I'm expected to have a public audience as they have costs they need to cover, which tells me I need a local artist. The discovery process. Now this is typically where you have your first meeting with the client and you discover what their needs are, and you go back to the office or back to your team and you figure out what you're going to do, because you'll come back and give them the official pitch at a later time. So in my case, I know that venue needs a public audience, and if I don't have one of my own, I need to provide one. So it means that I need to go find an artist in Paris with an audience that will play with me. Now, I would typically use MySpace to search for musicians by city or country, but they haven't allowed you to do that in quite some time. So I had to come up with something else. And after not having any success finding a search engine that could do this, I came up with not a script, but a trick, where by using Google search operators, I can narrow down my search to musician pages on Facebook that are of the singer-songwriter genre and located in Paris, France. All I had to do is put the site :prefix in front of facebook.com and copy paste the labels off of my own musician page. Step 4, solution design. So, made my connections, got places to stay, got my ideal venue, transportation's pretty straightforward. It's either going to be URL or BlaBlaCar, and I need to come up with a way to promote the crap out of this final booking at the end of the tour. So I'm going to come up with a postcard that people can send to their friends in the city or out of the city. Postage will not be prepaid, but I might have a roll of stamps at the shows, and there'll be enough white space that they can write their own address and their friend's address, a personal message, and there'll be a promo code to get a download off of the website, where they will be required to sign up for the mailing list, because at the end of the day, that's the goal, is to have that mailing list full of addresses of people that are waiting for the next show. On to step 5, the presentation. This is where I'm actually going to make that pitch to that response that I got and tell them that I'm not performing alone, that I guarantee a public audience. Worst case scenario, if for whatever reason people do not come, I will pay a rental fee for the hall. I've got a rather successful indie artist from Bordeaux coming up to Paris, where he's got a very loyal following. So I'm confident that with our combined efforts, it will be a blast. Step 6, implementation. It's the execution of the tour. And on the last tour, my mistake was trying to play as many cities as I could. I made a lot of allies with other musicians in various cities, which I could always go back and play with, but I'd be playing in front of their audience, and I would really like to have my own audience. So I'm going to stick to Paris for 3 months and play as often as I can, promote one show as often as I can, which will be at the end of the trip, so that I have 3 months, more or less, to promote one show in Paris. and get as many people to sign up for that mailing list and send out those postcards, and that will be my best shot at creating a foundation of fans, not allies.